There are moments in life when we pause, stunned, and ask ourselves, why did this happen? A chance meeting, a sudden loss, an unexpected opportunity, all appear random at first glance. Yet, as time unfolds, we begin to sense an invisible thread connecting these experiences. The truth is simple, yet profound. Nothing happens by accident. I will not ask you to accept this blindly. I will prove it with evidence, through the patterns of psychology, through real human stories, and through the very experiences many of you have lived. Life is not a series of accidents. It is a living dialogue between who we are within and what the world mirrors back to us. Let us walk through 5 truths that reveal why nothing in life is accidental. When we look at the events of our lives, we are often quick to dismiss them as accidents, coincidences, or random happenings with no deeper significance. A missed train, a sudden meeting with a stranger, the repetition of similar disappointment. Our rational minds would prefer to categorize these as chance occurrences, disconnected fragments of a meaningless whole. Yet when we truly begin to observe, when we sharpen the lens of awareness, something extraordinary reveals itself. The so-called accident is not accident at all. It is an unveiling, a reflection of something hidden within us, waiting to be seen. The unconscious, vast and uncharted, moves silently beneath the surface of our awareness, orchestrating what we call chance. Think of your own life for a moment. Have you ever noticed how the same kind of person keeps appearing at different points in your journey? Perhaps you continually attract friends who exploit your generosity, or lovers who abandon you when you most need them, or employers who undervalue your worth. Each time you may have shrugged your shoulders and said, "What bad luck, what a coincidence," but there is no luck here, no coincidence. There is design, not design imposed from the outside, but a design born from the depths of your psyche. The unconscious has a peculiar way of arranging the stage of our lives so that what is hidden within is mirrored in the world without. A man who carries within himself the unhealed wound of abandonment will again and again meet people who will leave him. It is not that life conspires against him with cruelty. Rather, his inner wound is seeking expression, seeking acknowledgement, seeking healing. He may curse fate, he may blame others, but until he turns inward and faces the wound, the outer world will repeat the lesson. Each repetition is a mirror, and each mirror offers him the same opportunity, the chance to confront the abandonment within himself and to finally mend what has been broken. There was once a woman who, in every job she took, found herself under the authority of a domineering and dismissive boss. She would change companies, move cities, even switch industries, yet somehow she always landed in the same dynamic. Was it pure accident that such personalities seemed to find her? She thought so, until one day, overwhelmed, she asked herself, "Why always me?" And in that question, something shifted. She realized she had grown up in a household with a father who belittled her, who demanded perfection, and who never offered approval. The authority figures she attracted in adulthood were not random strangers. They were echoes of the original authority that had shaped her. The unconscious had been arranging her life to force her to confront that ancient wound. Only when she acknowledged it did the pattern dissolve, and for the first time she found herself working for a leader who respected her. The accident was never accident. It was the psyche pressing her toward wholeness. It is easy for us to feel like victims of chance. When something painful happens, we console ourselves by saying, "Life is unfair, it just happens." But the truth is more demanding and also more liberating. Life is not happening to us. It is happening through us. The unconscious mind is not a passive storehouse of forgotten memories. It is alive, intelligent, and purposeful. It shapes our encounters, arranges the timing of events, and repeats scenarios until we finally see the truth they are pointing toward. You might wonder, but why would my own mind bring me pain? Why would it orchestrate such suffering? The answer lies in a paradox. The psyche cares less for our immediate comfort and more for our ultimate growth. Just as a bone must ache while it heals, or a muscle must tear before it strengthens, so too must the soul allow discomfort in order to bring us to awareness. Pain is the signal that something unresolved lies within us, and what appears to be cruel repetition is, in fact, a kind of mercy. It is the insistence of life that we cannot run from ourselves forever. Consider also the opposite, the so-called fortunate accidents that shape us. A young man misses his bus, and while waiting for the next, he strikes up a conversation with a stranger who later becomes his business partner. A woman, searching for meaning, stumbles upon a book in a library that speaks directly to her unasked questions, guiding her onto a new path. These are not random strokes of luck. They are the unconscious aligning the outer world with the inner state, bringing forth the opportunities that match the silent prayers of the heart. How many times have you said, "I was meant to meet this person," or "this came into my life at exactly the right time"? These intuitions are not poetic exaggerations. They are glimpses of truth. Life is speaking to you. The so-called accidents are woven into a tapestry, and while you may see only one thread at a time, the whole picture reveals itself when you step back and look with the eyes of meaning rather than chance. Return to the man abandoned again and again. At first, he believes he is cursed by fate. But what if he were to see each abandonment not as a cruel accident, but as a message? What if he asked, "What wound within me attracts this? What is unfinished in me that keeps drawing me back to this same stage?" In that moment of questioning, he ceases to be a victim of chance and becomes a participant in his own healing. And when he confronts the inner wound, perhaps the first abandonment by a parent long ago, he discovers that the pattern has served its purpose. The world no longer needs to mirror the wound once the wound is healed. What seemed a chain of accidents reveals itself as a path to liberation. This is why nothing happens by accident. Life is not a senseless scattering of events, but a dialogue between the conscious and the unconscious, between the visible and the invisible. We are co-creators of our experiences, even when we do not see it. The people who enter our lives, the challenges that confront us, the opportunities that arise, and even the losses we endure, all of them are woven with meaning. All of them are invitations to awaken. So the next time you find yourself saying, "What a coincidence," pause and look again. The next time you ask, "Why always me?" pause and listen. The accident may be a teacher. The repetition may be a mirror. The pain may be a summons, and the joy, too, may be a sign that the inner and outer worlds are in harmony. There are no accidents. There is only life, forever speaking, forever shaping, forever urging you toward the fullness of who you are meant to become. When we live in the rhythm of ordinary life, we are taught to believe that the world outside us and the world within us are two separate domains. Our thoughts are said to belong to the private chambers of the mind, and events belong to the objective world, ruled by chance, probability, and accident. Yet, if one observes carefully, if one attends with depth and not with haste, there are moments when this boundary collapses, when the inner thought and the outer event touch each other with such uncanny precision that chance alone cannot explain it. This meeting of inner and outer realities is what we call synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence, an alignment of psyche and world that reveals an underlying order. Picture a woman sitting at a cafe, her mind restless with the question of whether she should leave her unfulfilling job. She feels trapped by fear, uncertain of what will become of her if she leaps into the unknown. At that very moment, a stranger nearby speaks loudly enough for her to hear, "You'll never find your wings if you never jump." To the rational mind, it is an accident, a fragment of conversation with no relation to her, but her heart hears it differently. It answers the silent question she had been carrying, as if the world itself reached into her inner conflict and gave voice to her hidden longing. In such a moment, the division between mind and world dissolves. Life itself speaks. Many dismiss such experiences, explaining them away as coincidence, as if probability can account for the mystery. But the one who has lived them knows they are not hollow accidents. They leave a mark, a feeling of being addressed personally by the universe. These moments, subtle as they are, awaken us to the truth that the world around us is not dead matter, indifferent and mute, but alive, resonant with meaning, woven into the very fabric of our own inner life. Think of how often you have carried a deep thought within, only to see it reflected outwardly in unexpected ways, a dream that echoes into the day when you meet someone who embodies its symbol, a sudden question in your heart answered by a line from a book that fell into your hands by chance, a memory stirring in your mind, followed almost immediately by a song on the radio that sings of the same theme. These are not simply accidents strung together by luck. They are reminders that psyche and world are not two, but part of the same unfolding pattern. There was once a man who wrestled with despair after losing his father. He wandered through the city heavy with grief, asking in silence for a sign that life still held meaning. In his aimless walking, he passed a small bookstore and felt an impulse to enter. On the front table was a book he had never heard of, yet its title alone seemed to answer him, "The Living Spirit Beyond Death." He bought it, opened its pages, and discovered words that carried him through the darkness. Was it coincidence that his wandering led him there, or was his inner need resonating with the world outside, pulling him toward the very message he was ready to hear? The answer lies not in calculation, but in experience. The world responded to the cry of his soul. To ignore synchronicity is to live half, blind, insisting on a life ruled only by accident, where meaning is nothing more than projection. But to recognize it is to awaken to dialogue. The world ceases to be a machine of chance, and becomes instead a mirror, a partner, even a guide. The mind no longer feels isolated, for it sees itself reflected in the fabric of events. This shift is not mere philosophy. It is deeply human, profoundly healing. It assures us that our inner lives are not futile whispers into a void, but voices that can echo in the corridors of reality itself. Of course, one must be cautious. Not every event is a message. To imagine meaning in every flicker of light or every passing glance would trap us in delusion. The secret is balance, to cultivate sensitivity without superstition, to listen with openness but not with obsession. True synchronicity carries with it a resonance, a deep sense of "this belongs to me, this is for me." It is not forced. It arrives with a natural inevitability, leaving behind a quiet certainty that cannot be reasoned away. Take, for instance, a young student who doubted his ability to succeed in life. He had failed in his first attempts, and despair whispered that he was not good enough. One evening, walking home in his discouragement, he saw on a wall the words painted in bold letters, "Fall 7 times, stand up 8. It struck him like a personal message, though it had been written long before by someone unknown. But in that instant it was his message. He carried it home, repeated it like a mantra, and later built a career on the strength of that inner turning. To someone else, the graffiti would mean nothing. To him, it was everything. This is the essence of synchronicity. The world speaks uniquely to the soul prepared to hear. Skeptics will insist these things are coincidence, products of selective attention. But one must ask, why do certain events seize us with such intensity while others pass unnoticed? Why does one phrase among thousands spoken in a cafe strike the heart like thunder? Because it resonates with the inner life, because it fits into a pattern larger than the rational mind can see. Dismissing this as accident is to strip life of its depth, to deny the richness of experience that has guided countless individuals in their most important decisions. There is, beneath all things, an unseen order that binds thought and matter, inner and outer, self and world. Synchronicity is the crack through which we glimpse it. It is not proof in the language of laboratories, but it is proof in the language of the soul, and the soul needs its own kind of proof. The living proof of experience that reveals life is not empty, but meaningful beyond measure. To live without noticing synchronicity is to believe we wander in a chaos of accidents. To live with awareness of it is to sense that we are participants in a drama far greater than ourselves, that our questions are heard, that our thoughts ripple outward, that the world is responsive, alive, intertwined with the inner movements of the heart. And when one truly sees this, life is no longer a flat sequence of random days. It becomes an unfolding conversation where the invisible and visible meet in ways that remind us nothing happens by accident, and meaning is everywhere, waiting to be discovered. If life were only about comfort, growth would be impossible. The truth is that ease rarely transforms us. It lulls us into a quiet sleep where nothing stirs, nothing changes, and nothing awakens. It is suffering that breaks through the fragile shell of who we believe ourselves to be. What appears as misfortune is rarely an accident. It is a summons. It is life knocking at the door of the soul, demanding that we rise to meet ourselves in a deeper, more authentic way. We often resist it, curse it, and pray it away, yet the paradox remains. Without it, we would never discover the strength and depth that lie within. Think of the countless individuals throughout history who turned tragedy into transformation. Their lives become proof that pain, though brutal, carries within it the seed of purpose. Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in the horror of the Holocaust, stripped of family, freedom, and dignity, discovered something unshakable. That man's deepest freedom is the ability to choose his attitude in any given set of circumstances. The Nazis could command his body, they could starve him, beat him, and humiliate him, but they could not dictate his inner response. From the ashes of his torment was born a vision that has since guided millions. His book Man's Search for Meaning stands as a beacon to those who suffer. Was his suffering meaningless? No, it became the fire that forged his purpose. Without the crucible of suffering, his gift to the world would never have emerged. Each of us, though not imprisoned in a camp, carries our own prisons: loss, betrayal, failure, illness, rejection. And yet, if we dare to look back, many of the qualities we value most in ourselves were not born from comfort, but from struggle. Courage does not grow in sunshine, it grows in the storm. Compassion does not blossom from ease, it is watered by tears, often our own. Endurance does not develop when everything goes as planned. It develops when life collapses and we must crawl through the ruins. The pain you endure is not an accident. It is part of a greater design, pressing you to awaken, to stretch beyond the narrow limits of who you once were. I once knew a man who had built his identity on wealth and career. To the outside world he appeared successful, confident, unshakable. but when financial ruin struck him suddenly, the ground beneath him collapsed. At first he saw only loss, humiliation, and despair. Yet in time he began to realize that his suffering was stripping him of illusions. It was revealing to him that his worth was not in numbers or status, but in his capacity to love, to serve, and to endure. He later said with clarity and even gratitude that losing everything was the moment he began to truly live. His misfortune had not been accident. It had been a summons to awaken to his true self. The greatest danger is not that we suffer, but that we waste our suffering. When we fight against it blindly, refusing to learn, we become bitter, hardened, and resentful. But when we meet suffering as a messenger asking, "What is this here to teach me? What strength must I now uncover? What truth must I now face?" then suffering transforms. It ceases to be meaningless pain and becomes the crucible of our becoming. Consider the way the body works. A bone, when broken, heals by forming new tissue, often stronger than before. A muscle, when torn by exertion, rebuilds itself with greater strength. Nature itself teaches us that breaking and tearing are not accidents but processes of growth. So it is with the soul. Heartbreak teaches us the depth of love. Failure teaches us humility and resilience. Loss teaches us gratitude for what remains. Every wound, if embraced, can open a doorway to wisdom. There is a story of a woman who lost her child in an accident. At first, she was consumed with grief, convinced that her life was over. But in time, she began volunteering at a support group for grieving parents. What she discovered was that her deepest wound gave her the ability to comfort others in ways no one else could. Her tragedy, though it never ceased to ache, became the source of her greatest purpose. She later said, "I could not bring my child back, but I could bring light into the lives of others who suffered as I did, and perhaps that is what my child would have wanted of me." Her pain was not wasted. It was transformed into service, into meaning. When suffering comes, we are tempted to believe we are victims of blind chance, that life is cruel and meaningless. But what if we chose to see it differently? What if suffering is not accident but initiation? What if each sorrow is not punishment but preparation, the preparation of the soul for its highest calling? In the myths and stories of every culture, the hero does not discover his power in a garden of ease. He discovers it in the cave of trials, in the wilderness, in exile, in the places of loss and darkness. The same is true for us. Our suffering is the initiation that calls us into our own heroism. This is not to romanticize suffering. Pain is real, and it can crush us if we resist its lesson. But when we embrace it with courage, it reshapes us in ways that comfort never could. Every scar becomes a reminder of what we survived. Every wound that heals becomes a testament to the indestructible spirit within. So the next time you find yourself broken, remember, you are not being destroyed, you are being forged. The fire that burns is also the fire that strengthens. The loss that empties you is also the loss that makes space for something new. The grief that overwhelms you is also the grief that expands your heart to hold more love than you once believed possible. There are no accidents in suffering. It is the great sculptor of the soul. It carves away what is false, what is shallow, what is temporary, until only the essential remains. And in that essential core we find our purpose. Your pain is not meaningless. It is not a cruel joke of fate. It is part of a greater design, one that asks you to awaken, to stretch, to rise into the fullness of who you are meant to be. If you allow it, your suffering will become your teacher, your strength, and perhaps even the very gift you offer to the world. If you look closely at your life, you will begin to notice a rhythm, a repetition, a strange familiarity that returns again and again in different forms. These repetitions are not meaningless. They are the undeniable proof that nothing is accidental. They are signals, messages from the depths of your being, trying to awaken you, trying to teach you what you have not yet learned. Life does not waste its lessons. What is ignored returns. What is denied reappears. What is resisted repeats itself until it has accomplished its work within you. Many believe they are cursed by bad luck, when in truth they are haunted by unlearned lessons. A young entrepreneur once failed 3 businesses in a row. Each time he explained away the failure with external reasons. The economy was unstable, his partners were untrustworthy, the timing was wrong. But when he finally paused and allowed himself to see with honest eyes, he realized the common denominator was himself. He had a fear of letting go, a fear of trusting others, a need to control everything on his own. His so-called accidents were not accidents at all. They were repetitions, life's persistent attempts to show him the very barrier that stood in his way. Only when he faced this truth did his story change, and he discovered that by releasing control and trusting others, his next venture thrived. Patterns in life are the handwriting of the unconscious. They are the invisible ink with which our hidden self writes its messages onto the fabric of daily events. Look at the relationships you have formed. Do the same wounds reappear in different faces? Do the same conflicts emerge again and again, even in new environments? These are not coincidences. They are mirrors, reflecting the inner dramas you have not yet resolved. The person who finds betrayal in every friendship is often carrying within them a wound of trust never healed. The one who constantly feels unappreciated may be repeating the old echo of a childhood where their worth was overlooked. Until these truths are brought into awareness, life will continue to stage them on the outer stage so that you may no longer look away. Patterns are merciful, though they rarely feel that way. They are life's way of insisting that you grow. Without repetition, we would not see. The first time something happens, we may dismiss it. The second time, we may still explain it away. But the third, the fourth, the fifth time, it becomes harder to deny. Repetition wears down our defenses until we finally confront what lies beneath. This is why so many say, "Why does this always happen to me?" It is not happening to you. It is happening for you. It is not chance. It is instruction. There was once a woman who repeatedly found herself in relationships with men who were emotionally unavailable. At first, she thought it was simply bad luck, or that she had poor judgment. But after years of the same pain, she began to ask deeper questions. She remembered that as a child, the parent she longed for most was present in body but absent in affection, a distant figure she could never reach. In adulthood, her unconscious kept recreating the same scenario, not to torture her, but to bring her wound to the surface. Once she saw the pattern clearly, she understood that she was not destined to live in abandonment. She was being asked to heal the longing within her, to give herself the love that had been denied. When she did, the pattern dissolved. Life no longer needed to repeat the lesson once the lesson had been embraced. If you look back on your life, you will see patterns like threads weaving through your story. Sometimes they are painful threads, sometimes joyful, but always instructive. Repetition is the proof that there is meaning beneath the surface. Random chance does not insist, but life insists. Random chance does not knock on your door year after year, but the unconscious does, calling you to grow, to integrate, to become whole. Even collective history shows us this truth. Humanity repeats its lessons across generations. Wars erupt again and again, driven by the same hatreds, the same greed, the same fears, until societies learn. sometimes slowly, painfully, that these patterns lead only to destruction. Progress is made only when the pattern is recognized and broken. The same is true for the individual. The same wound, the same failure, the same disappointment will appear until consciousness finally rises to meet it. The beauty of patterns is that they carry with them the opportunity for transformation. Once you see the design, you are no longer bound by it. Awareness is the great liberator, to recognize this is not bad luck, this is not accident, this is life teaching me, is to step out of victimhood and into power. You may not be able to change the past, but you can change your response. You can interrupt the repetition, learn the lesson, and move into a new chapter of your story. Think of the way nature itself operates. Seasons repeat not by accident, but by necessity. The earth needs its cycles to renew itself. Winter strips bare so that spring can bloom. Summer ripens what autumn will harvest. Without repetition there would be no life. So it is with the psyche. The repetition of wounds, the cycles of difficulty, are not there to punish but to renew. They strip us of illusions, ripen us in wisdom, and harvest within us the fruits of self-awareness. If you find yourself saying, "It's happening again," pause and listen. The pattern is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It is the map life has drawn to lead you back to yourself. The entrepreneur who failed again and again was not cursed. He was being shown the key he had been afraid to hold. The woman who endured absent lovers was not doomed. She was being led to heal the absence within her, and so it is for each of us. The repetition is proof, the insistence of meaning, the handwriting of destiny calling us to wake up. Nothing is accidental. The patterns of your life, especially the painful ones, are the threads by which your soul weaves its story. If you see them with open eyes, they will guide you. If you ignore them, they will return until you cannot. To pay attention is to live consciously, to break free of cycles, and to step into the freedom of growth. Patterns are the proof that life is not random. They are the fingerprints of the unconscious, the signs that the invisible world is alive within the visible one. To recognize them is to discover that even your greatest struggles are not accidents, but carefully woven lessons, patiently repeated until you are ready to receive their wisdom. Life is never silent. It is always speaking, though its language is not always the one of literal words or straightforward explanations. It speaks in images, in symbols, in stories that come to us in dreams, in passing thoughts, in sudden intuitions, and in the metaphors we encounter in the world around us. To the logical mind, these things often seem irrelevant or random, but to the deeper self they are profound messages, carefully delivered from the hidden layers of the psyche. Nothing you encounter is meaningless, for even your imagination is a messenger, and even what seems most trivial often carries the seed of transformation. Think of the dreams that arrive in the stillness of night. How often do we wake from them, shrug them off as nonsense, and then go about our day as if they had no significance? Yet time and again, if you look back, you will see that dreams are windows into truths you have not yet dared to face in waking life. A man dreams of drowning, thrashing in dark water, gasping for breath. He awakes unsettled, but quickly dismisses it. Later, he realizes he is suffocating beneath obligations he has ignored, responsibilities he has tried to push aside. The dream spoke before the crisis erupted. It was a warning, a symbol that revealed what his conscious mind was unwilling to acknowledge. The dream was not random. It was life itself trying to awaken him. Children, in their innocence, often reveal this language with startling clarity. A child who draws storm after storm, dark skies filled with lightning, may not yet have the words to describe the turmoil within their home. But the psyche finds a way to speak regardless. Their imagination, their art, becomes the canvas upon which their soul writes its truth. When adults dismiss such expressions as meaningless doodles, they fail to see that the child's inner world is crying out through symbols. The drawing is a story, and the story is the key to understanding what cannot yet be spoken aloud. Life speaks in symbols because the psyche itself is symbolic. The unconscious does not use plain language. It uses images, metaphors, and myths. This is why the great stories of humanity, the myths told in every culture, continue to resonate across time. They are not mere entertainment. They are mirrors of the human journey. When you read of Hercules wrestling with monsters or Odysseus wandering far from home, you are reading not only ancient tales but the story of your own life. The monster may be your fear, the endless journey may be your longing for belonging. Myth is the symbolic expression of universal truths, and when you encounter it, you are encountering yourself. The same is true for the symbols that appear in your daily life. A bird landing on your window when you are contemplating freedom, a broken clock when you are struggling with time, a sudden encounter with a story that perfectly mirrors your own hidden struggle. These are not mere coincidences. They are synchronicities, meaningful alignments of inner and outer worlds. To the casual observer, they are accidents. To the awakened soul, they are signs. The language of life is metaphor, and when you learn to read it, you begin to realize that everything around you is alive with meaning. Consider how often we tell our own story through the language we unconsciously choose. Someone may say, "I feel like I'm carrying the weight of the world," and dismiss it as a simple phrase. But what if it is more than a phrase? What if it is the soul speaking in metaphor? They may indeed be burdened, suffocating beneath expectations, and their own words are revealing the truth before their conscious mind can admit it. Another might say, "I feel like I'm lost at sea," and behind the metaphor is the reality of feeling adrift, without anchor or direction. Our speech is filled with symbols because the deeper layers of the psyche are always pressing upward, trying to be heard. If you are attentive, you will see that your life is a story being written, and the characters, the events, the dreams, and even the stray thoughts are all chapters of that story. You are not wandering in a meaningless world. You are surrounded by a tapestry of signs pointing toward your purpose. The challenge is not whether life speaks, but whether you are willing to listen. The difficulty is that listening requires humility. It requires setting aside the arrogance of believing only the rational mind has authority. The rational mind seeks straight lines and hard facts, but life often speaks in circles, in whispers, in paradoxes, in images that must be felt rather than dissected. Think of the countless individuals who ignored the quiet symbols of their lives until they could no longer be ignored. A man plagued by recurring dreams of fire dismissed them as nonsense, until his relentless anger began consuming his relationships. The dream had been warning him of a fire within long before it erupted outwardly. Another, who repeatedly stumbled upon the image of a mountain in stories, in dreams, in unexpected places, eventually realized that his greatest challenge was to face an inner climb, a struggle toward higher consciousness. These were not random details. They were life itself weaving metaphors to draw attention to what must be seen. If you begin to see life this way, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. The book that falls from a shelf, the line of dialogue you overhear, the animal that crosses your path, all may carry meaning if you are willing to look deeper. The point is not to obsess or to find false messages everywhere. but to open your awareness to the possibility that you are not wandering through a dead, mechanical world. You are moving through a world alive with symbols, a world that reflects the depths of your own soul. Life does not speak in accidents. It speaks in metaphors, in dreams, in archetypal images that echo through time and across cultures. When you learn its language, you begin to live with a new sense of connection. You realize that you are part of a story far larger than yourself, that every struggle, every dream, every repeated image is not meaningless but purposeful. And when you embrace this truth, life ceases to feel random. It becomes, instead, a dialogue, a conversation between your soul and the world, each answering the other, each guiding you toward wholeness. To ignore the symbols of life is to ignore the voice of your own soul. To embrace them is to awaken to the richness of existence, to recognize that the story you are living has always been written in more than facts. It has been written in images, in metaphors, in symbols waiting for you to finally understand. Life is not silent. It is speaking to you now in ways both subtle and profound, asking only that you listen with the heart as much as with the mind. It is telling you that everything matters, that nothing is wasted, that every symbol is a doorway if only you have the courage to open it. So, when I tell you that nothing happens by accident, I am not appealing to blind faith. I am pointing to the evidence written in your own experiences, in the repeating patterns of human lives, and in the symbols that call to us from the depths. The stranger you met, the challenge you endured, the dream you had last night, none of these are random. They are threads in the tapestry of your becoming. When you awaken to this truth, life is no longer chaos. It is conversation. It is not a storm tossing you around. It is a river carrying you toward the ocean of who you were always meant to be. Nothing happens by accident. Everything is speaking to you. The only question is, are you listening?